Hey guys, how's it going? This is William Marshford Sim Racing Paddock, and this is our first drive of the Fanatec Clubsport Wheel version 2.5. Now, this is actually a completely blind, raw first test drive. I have no driving on this yet. I literally put it out of the box, made sure all the drivers and firmware were up to date, set it up for Assetto Corsa, and now here we are. So before we get going, I want to share a little disclaimer that I found out. With Windows 10, the latest stable driver for the Clubsport Wheel version 2.5 will have some issues. So what you need to do is you need to go into the Fanatec blog, make sure you're logged into the site, and you will find the beta driver. I believe it is version 281. And that will also provide the latest driver and firmware for the wheel, and it should work well after that. So, without further ado, let's take this wheel for a spin, and let's see how it performs. Now, I've been driving with the Clubsport Wheel version 2.0, which is a great wheel in itself. And this wheel is set to boast some further improvements, where it is apparently the refresh rate on this wheel is twice the speed. So the Clubsport Wheel version 2.0 had a refresh rate of 500 hertz, and then this wheel has a refresh rate of 1000 hertz. In theory, that's supposed to provide a slightly better feel, a little quicker response, being able to catch slides that hair quicker. And so far, just from a couple corners, I will say this feels actually like a solid improvement over the version 2.0. The steering feels slightly more, less resistance. I have this set with 0 dampening. I have this set with the drift mode off. Now, I've heard that with this wheel, it is supposed to have a function called negative drift mode, where in the previous wheel it goes from 0 to 5 on drift mode, with 0 being off and then 5 sort of being where I would almost call it similar to negative force feedback, where if you steer the wheel, then it basically continues accelerating the wheel, which is good for drifters who want that wheel to just fly forward in catching spins, things like that. In the Clubsport Wheel version 2.5, it's supposed to have this functionality where it goes into negative drift mode, and negative 5 would be seen as the same as off on the Clubsport Wheel V2. In my experience right now, this wheel doesn't have the negative drift mode, which is kind of confusing, but I will contact Fanatec about that and see if there's a reason for that. But they have said that negative 5 drift mode on the V2.5 is the same as version 2.0's off, which I liked quite a bit. And so far, like, I'm trying to think of how to tangibly say how I like this wheel above the version 2.0. I would say the easiest way to put it is this feels lighter. One of the things you have been seeing advancements in these belt-driven wheels is the dampening is going down and down and down. If you consider some of the early belt-driven wheels, you have quite a bit of resistance because of the natural dampening of the belts. This almost feels no dampening. It feels pretty close to the Bonner wheel in terms of lack of resistance, in my opinion. Because the Bonner wheel is actually the only direct drive system I've driven to this day. And that was on the CXC Motion Pro 2, which actually used a custom motor, but the software powering it is Bonner. So with that, this wheel feels very, very loose in terms of not feeling the dampening, but also very tight in terms of the force feedback responsiveness. So that's a pretty cool thing. This I really am enjoying right now on my first drive. This is making a positive first impression. Now, I might say that if you already own the Clubsport Wheel version 2.0, it might not be worth the upgrade, unless you could sell your V2 for a decent price. For a V1 owner, I'd say this is a pretty darn significant upgrade. For a Logitech racer, this is miles and miles beyond. And this is definitely a great feeling wheel. I am getting a lot of responsiveness through it, which is a great thing. Let's get one more lap in. But yeah, I will say, sure, that refresh rate, the 1000 versus 500, might seem like some sort of mumbo jumbo on first glance, but I think this is actually making a significant improvement. You really are able to catch these slides a lot better. Just like that. It feels very responsive. And that is one thing I am loving about this. This wheel definitely has a great torque curve. It does pack a good amount of torque. I want to say it's around the ballpark of 7 to 8 Newton meters of torque, which is on the higher end of the spectrum for belt-driven wheels. But at the lower end, it feels very precise. It feels very linear in the torque delivery, where it's not really offering up some surprises. Okay, after we finish this lap, let's take the Formula Carbon rim for a spin, and we can see how that performs. Okay, so now we're behind the wheel of the McLaren 650S GT3 at the Red Bull Ring, and I have outfitted the Clubsport Wheel V2.5 with the Formula Carbon rim. And this, I will say, will likely be more of a test of the dampening and also the belt, because A, this rim is actually slightly heavier than the universal hub with the GT rim, and this is also a shorter diameter, which means the same strength is going to be dispersed over a shorter rim, which means there should be more dampening, more strength being felt through the wheel. So let's take this for a spin. Jeez, this thing feels so smooth. Yeah, this thing feels extremely smooth, even compared to the V2, which was a pretty darn smooth wheel. This almost feels like there's no belt at all. Yeah, I could definitely see how this could be mistaken for borderline direct drive. This thing definitely, you feel very little resistance at all with the belt, and that is, wow. Props to Fanatec for that. So, a few things to discuss with this wheel is that they decided to put in a new motor for the V2.5, and it is a brushless motor. I believe from the past, they used to have a dual motor system in the V1. I believe they're on a single motor now, And this actually does feel like a significant improvement motor-wise over the V2. You can feel there is slightly more torque under high load, but with when it's low load, that's what's the most surprising, because that was where I felt the V2 had the most room for improvement when it wasn't under load. This feels like a significant improvement. I'm a lot more precise than I was before when you're not in like the high speed corners, when you're not under load. So I would say this, in terms of the load, like when you're not under high load, this wheel, that's where it really shines. Whoa. Okay, that was a miracle I caught that slide. Yeah, I don't think I could have caught that slide in the V2. But with this wheel, it feels like a significant improvement. So if you are looking for a high-end wheel for the PlayStation 4, you're not wanting to splurge on direct drive just yet, but you're looking for something to get out of like the gear drive or a lower tier wheel, this is a solid option. Again, I'd say unless you can get a good deal selling your V2, I wouldn't go for the V2.5 if you already own a newer Clubsport wheel. This, so far, is a worthy successor to the V2. I'll say that, though. Another minor touch I like, this might be polarizing for some people, is that this is design-wise almost identical to the Clubsport Wheel V2, which was almost identical to the Clubsport Wheel V1. That means with your cockpit, you don't have to drill any new holes, you don't have to basically redesign your cockpit to accommodate a new wheel. So that's a nice benefit in itself. But man, this is a solid wheel. And I will be putting it through its paces a little further. Likely in a few weeks, I will be putting out my review of this wheel after I put a few more hours on it. Because first impressions are good, but we need to see how this works long term. But so far, first impressions, pretty darn good. So, I would like to hear your opinions on what you would like me to address in my review of this wheel. Also, if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons to help keep us on track. Also, we are going to be putting out our review of the Felt Engineering Sim Pedals Pro in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And also, if you want to join our community, go to www.simracingpaddock.com, keyword forums, and join our community. I just added some exciting new threads where you can participate in and just get to know some new people. For the Sim Racing Paddock, I'm William Marsh, and I'll see you on the track.